For more than 6 decades, Diana Ross has been more than just a voice. She has been a symbol, a pioneer, a standard-bearer of elegance and resilience. From her days as the radiant lead of the Supremes, breaking records and racial barriers, to her reign as a solo superstar, actress and fashion icon, she has lived a life that has not only been witnessed by the world, it has been shaped by it. But at 81, something has shifted. Yes, she still commands sold-out arenas, still dazzles on the world's biggest red carpets, still wears a smile that could light up any stage. Yet, behind that smile, there are stories of perseverance, of loss, of reinvention. Moments of quiet reflection away from the glare of the spotlight. A lifetime of battles fought privately, and triumphs celebrated publicly. This is not just the story of what Diana Ross has done. It's the story of who she has become, the survivor, the unstoppable force. It's about how, even now, she's writing new chapters in a book most thought was already complete. And yes, there will be moments that will break your heart. Because this is the truth. What has happened to Diana Ross at 81 is not just about the aging of a legend. It's about the evolution of a woman whose light refuses to dim, even as the years pass. It's about the way she continues to defy time, redefine beauty, and prove that passion doesn't fade, it deepens. So prepare yourself, because when you see the journey she's on today, you just might cry. In Detroit, March 26, 1944, a little girl named Diana Ernestine Earl Ross entered the world. Diana was the second eldest of 6 children born to Fred Ross Sr. and Ernestine Ross. Her childhood home at Brewster Douglas Housing Projects was modest, but it was filled with music, laughter, and the kind of determination that makes legends. Her parents worked tirelessly to keep food on the table and hope in their children's hearts. For young Diana, that hope often came in the form of songs she'd hum to herself while helping her mother in the kitchen or sweeping the front steps. Even then, her voice was something different, clear, sweet, and carrying an emotional depth far beyond her years. But music wasn't her only interest. Diana loved fashion, sketching dresses in the margins of her school notebooks. She once confided to friends that she dreamed of becoming a fashion designer, not a singer. Yet fate had other plans. By her early teens, Diana had developed a quiet confidence. She attended Cass Technical High School, a magnet school in Detroit that was a breeding ground for ambitious young minds. There, she studied costume design, millinery, and pattern making, all while soaking up every note of gospel, jazz, and R&B that drifted through her neighborhood. It was in these years that she met Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard, girls who shared her love of music and her hunger for something bigger than Detroit's city limits. They sang together informally at first, their voices blending in a way that felt almost predestined. Soon they formed a group called the Primettes, performing at school dances, community events, and talent shows. They were young, unpolished, but there was magic in the way they harmonized. That magic caught the attention of Berry Gordy Jr., the ambitious founder of a small but growing record label called Motown. At first, Gordy turned them down, telling them to finish high school before pursuing music full-time. But Diana was not one to be easily deterred. She kept showing up at Motown's Hitsville, USA studio, offering to run errands, answering phones, and quietly observing the artists who came through the doors: Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. In 1961, Gordy finally signed them to Motown, renaming the group the Supremes. At first, success was slow. Their early singles failed to chart, and the young women were dismissed by critics as no-hit Supremes. But Diana's focus never wavered. She worked tirelessly on her vocal delivery, learning how to control her tone, how to communicate emotion with every syllable. She studied the movements of established stars, practicing in front of a mirror until every gesture felt effortless. Then, in 1964, everything changed. Where Did Our Love Go shot to No. 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and suddenly, the Supremes were unstoppable. Over the next few years, they would rack up 12 No. 1 hits, including Baby Love, Stop, In the Name of Love, and You Can't Hurry Love. Each one an anthem, each one cementing their place in music history. But the rise of the Supremes was more than just chart success. They broke barriers as one of the first African-American groups to achieve mainstream popularity, appearing on The Ed Sullivan Show and touring internationally. Diana, with her towering hair, glamorous gowns, and radiant stage presence, became the face of the group and a symbol of elegance for an entire generation. Behind the scenes, though, there were tensions. Stardom was demanding, friendships were tested, and the pressure to maintain perfection was relentless. Diana's ambitions sometimes clashed with the dynamics within the group, but her commitment to the music, and to her dream, never faltered. By the late 1960s, Berry Gordy began positioning Diana as a solo star, a move that would redefine her career and eventually her life. She was no longer just a girl from the projects of Detroit. She was Diana Ross, the voice of a generation, standing on the edge of a new chapter. The year was 1970, and the world of Diana Ross was shifting like a spotlight swiveling from one star to another. After nearly a decade as the face and voice of the Supremes, Berry Gordy officially announced Diana's departure from the group. It was a moment charged with both celebration and uncertainty. Celebration for the incredible legacy she was leaving behind, uncertainty for what would come next. The Supremes were beloved, their harmonies unmatched, their influence undeniable. But Gordy saw something singular in Diana. He believed she could carry a stage all on her own. He was right. Her solo debut album, simply titled Diana Ross, was released that same year, and it was a revelation. The record's lead single, Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand, became a signature anthem, not just for its uplifting melody, but for its message of human connection. Something Diana had always embodied in her performances. And then there was Ain't No Mountain High Enough, her soaring reimagining of Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell's hit, which became her first #1 single as a solo artist. It was proof. Diana Ross was not just surviving outside the Supremes, she was ascending to a new peak. The 1970s became a decade of artistic expansion for her. She released hit after hit, Touch Me in the Morning, Theme from Mahogany, Do You Know Where You're Going To, Love Hangover, each one showing a different facet of her artistry. She could be tender, sensual, exuberant, or heartbroken, sometimes all in a single song. Her voice was not the loudest in the industry, but it carried an intimacy, a directness, that made you feel she was singing just for you. But Diana's ambitions stretched far beyond music. Berry Gordy, always looking to push boundaries, saw her potential as an actress. In 1972, she made her film debut in Lady Sings the Blues, portraying the legendary jazz singer Billie Holiday. The role was daunting. Billie's life was complex, tragic, and emotionally raw, but Diana threw herself into the part. She studied Holiday's voice, mannerisms, and vulnerability, delivering a performance so powerful that it earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. The film's soundtrack, featuring Diana's interpretations of Holiday classics, became a commercial success, and suddenly, Diana Ross was not just a singer. She was a bona fide movie star. 2 years later came Mahogany, 1975, a story of an ambitious fashion designer navigating love, success, and self-discovery. A role that felt almost autobiographical for Diana. The film's theme song, Do You Know Where You're Going To, became another #1 hit, capturing the bittersweet nature of chasing dreams. While critics were divided on the movie itself, Diana's performance was widely praised for its authenticity and magnetic presence. Then came The Wiz, 1978, an ambitious reimagining of The Wizard of Oz with an all-black cast. Diana played Dorothy opposite Michael Jackson's Scarecrow, taking the familiar journey down the yellow brick road but infusing it with soul, funk, and 1970s flair. Though the film was a box office disappointment at the time, it has since gained cult status, and its soundtrack remains beloved. By the early 1980s, Diana Ross was not just an entertainer, she was a global icon. She signed a groundbreaking $20 million deal with RCA Records, one of the most lucrative contracts in music history at the time. Her album Diana, 1980, produced by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards of Chic, became one of her biggest successes, spawning hits like Upside Down and Am Coming Out, the latter becoming an enduring anthem of self-expression and pride. Off stage, however, life was as complex as it was glamorous. She navigated fame while raising her growing family, all under the relentless scrutiny of the press. She had romances that made headlines, business deals that sparked speculation, and an unyielding work ethic that sometimes came at personal cost. Yet, no matter what was happening behind the scenes, when Diana stepped onto a stage or in front of a camera, she delivered nothing less than magic. By the end of the 1980s, Diana Ross had done what many thought impossible. She had built not one, but two legendary careers, first as the lead of the Supremes, then as a solo artist and actress. She had conquered the charts, the box office, and the fashion world, redefining what it meant to be a multi-hyphenate star. And though she had already achieved more than most could dream of, she was far from finished. The 1990s would bring new challenges, new reinventions, and new battles. Some public, some deeply private, as Diana navigated an industry that was changing just as fast as the woman herself. By the time the 1990s dawned, Diana Ross was no longer just a star, she was a living institution. Her name carried weight not only in the music industry but in film, television, fashion, and philanthropy. Yet the very thing that made her legendary, her refusal to slow down, also set the stage for some of her most defining tests. The decade began with Ross still touring the world, her shows as lavish and electrifying as ever. She released albums like The Force Behind the Power, 1991, which produced international hits such as When You Tell Me That You Love Me, a soaring ballad that became one of her signature songs in the UK and beyond. The track revealed a softer, more introspective side of Diana, one that resonated deeply with audiences who had grown up with her and now found themselves facing the complexities of adulthood alongside their idol. Her reach extended beyond music. In 1994, Diana starred in the television film Out of Darkness, portraying a woman struggling with schizophrenia. The role was a daring departure from her glamorous public image, and it earned her a Golden Globe nomination. It showed the world that Diana Ross was not afraid to embrace vulnerability, to step into roles that demanded empathy and emotional courage. But the 90s were not without turbulence. Personal losses, shifting record label dynamics, and the changing tides of the music industry tested her resilience. Hip-hop and grunge dominated the charts, MTV was shaping the next generation of pop icons, and many of Diana's contemporaries quietly faded into nostalgia. Diana, however, refused to be relegated to the past. She adapted, collaborating with contemporary producers, performing at global events, and leaning into her reputation as the boss. A woman who had earned her place at the top through decades of relentless work. The new millennium brought yet another reinvention. In 1999, she reunited with Mary Wilson and Linda Lawrence for a short-lived but much-hyped Supremes reunion tour. Though it ended amid creative disagreements, the effort reminded audiences of the enduring power of those harmonies and the cultural weight of their legacy. In the early 2000s, Ross shifted her focus toward personal healing and family. She became more selective with projects, choosing appearances that felt meaningful. Her 2006 album, I Love You, was a collection of love songs dedicated to her fans, a reminder that her relationship with her audience was as much about connection as it was about performance. By the end of the 2000s, Diana had cemented her reputation as a cross-generational influence. Younger artists like Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, and Jennifer Hudson openly cited her as an inspiration. Her style, her grace under pressure, and her insistence on artistic control became a blueprint for a new wave of performers. Yet beneath the accolades was a truth that fans didn't always see. Diana Ross had survived decades in an industry notorious for burning out even its brightest lights. She had weathered shifting trends, personal heartbreaks, and the constant pressure to remain perfect in the public eye. And still she stood, not as a relic of the past, but as proof that true artistry is timeless. If the 1990s and 2000s had been about resilience, the years from 2015 to 2021 were about renewal. By now, Diana Ross had nothing left to prove, but that didn't mean she was ready to step away from the microphone. Quite the opposite. Her passion for performance seemed to intensify with age, as though time itself was her collaborator. In 2015, Ross revisited a chapter of her cinematic history with Diana Ross Sings Songs from The Wiz. The project was more than nostalgia, it was a reclamation of a role that had been misunderstood in its day. While The Wiz had been a commercial disappointment upon release in 1978, it had since become a cultural touchstone. For Ross, re-recording those songs was like returning to a garden she had planted decades earlier and finding it in full bloom. But it was in 2021 that Diana made perhaps her most surprising creative move in years. After a 15-year gap without a studio album, she released Thank You, a project conceived and recorded during the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic. The record was a love letter, not just to her fans, but to life itself. This collection of songs is my gift to you with appreciation and love, she said in a statement. I am eternally grateful that I had the opportunity to record this glorious music at this time. The album's lead single, Thank You, radiated positivity, while tracks like If the World Just Danced encouraged joy and unity in a time when both felt scarce. The fact that Ross was creating new music, and not just relying on her back catalog, at a point in life when many of her peers had retired spoke volumes about her relentless spirit. Critics noted that Thank You didn't try to chase trends. Instead, it embraced Ross's strengths, warmth, optimism, and an uncanny ability to make every listener feel seen. It was nominated for a Grammy Award, reaffirming her place in the industry she had helped shape more than half a century earlier. These later years also saw Ross return to major stages. She performed at the Grammy Awards, headlined the Glastonbury Festival, and embarked on tours that drew crowds spanning generations. Her presence was as commanding as ever. Her voice, though matured, carried the same sincerity that had captivated audiences since the 1960s. Behind the scenes, her life was centered on family. Her 5 children, Rhonda, Tracy, Chudney, Ross Ness, and Evan, were no longer just her greatest personal achievement, but also her constant companions on tour and in public appearances. Ross spoke often about how being a mother and grandmother was the role that grounded her the most. By the close of 2021, Diana Ross stood as an anomaly in entertainment, a woman who had not only endured but evolved, crafting art that reflected each season of her life. She wasn't chasing youth, she was embracing the richness of age, showing the world that creativity doesn't expire, it matures. The world's media woke up with one headline on their lips: Diana Ross turns 80. 8 decades. More than 60 years of them spent on the world stage. And still, there she was, radiant, unyielding, smiling as if she discovered a secret the rest of us had yet to learn. In interviews, she spoke not about slowing down, but about gratitude. "I'm still here," she said, "and I'm still doing what I love. That's the greatest gift." As 2024 unfolded, Diana's calendar looked more like that of a rising star than a living legend supposedly in her retirement years. She toured. She recorded. She appeared at major events with a kind of grace and sparkle that made people forget she was approaching her 9th decade. Her shows weren't just concerts, they were communal celebrations, gatherings where multiple generations sang along to songs they'd each grown up with in different decades. Then came May 2025, and the moment that would dominate fashion headlines across the globe: Diana Ross at the Met Gala. The theme was Threads of Time, and Diana didn't just attend, she owned the night. She arrived draped in a shimmering silver gown, the bodice hand-stitched with crystals, and an enormous 18-foot feathered train embroidered with the names of her children and grandchildren. It wasn't just couture. It was a declaration: family is my greatest masterpiece. As the train trailed behind her on the iconic Met steps, photographers gasped. Social media exploded. Fans around the world were moved to tears. It was as if the entire gown told her life story, each stitch a note, each feather a memory. But behind the glamour, 2025 also brought moments of vulnerability. Just weeks before a highly anticipated appearance as godmother for a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, Diana abruptly cancelled. No detailed explanation was given, and while rumors swirled, her team emphasized that she was focusing on upcoming US tour dates, starting August 16th in Saratoga, California. For an artist known for keeping personal matters private, the cancellation was unusual, and it sparked quiet concern among fans. If there was worry, however, Diana never let it show on stage. In July 2025, she stepped into the Hollywood Bowl for a sold-out performance that felt more like a coronation than a concert. Backed by a full band and surrounded by her family, she moved through 4 elaborate costume changes, from sequin gowns to flowing capes, and delivered classics like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and I'm Coming Out with the same magnetic energy that first made them hits. At one point she paused, looked out over the sea of faces, and said, "I am not retiring. Don't even think about it." The crowd roared. It was not just a performance, it was a promise. She carried that promise across the Atlantic later in the summer, performing at Glasgow's OVO Hydro in a special symphonic collaboration with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. The combination of her voice with the lush orchestral arrangements brought new life to familiar songs, and reviewers called it a masterclass in timeless performance. And yet, when you see her now, the silver hair crowned like a halo, the smile still dazzling but softer somehow, you can't help but feel a lump in your throat. It's not sadness exactly. It's the weight of knowing that you're witnessing a once-in-a-century presence still burning bright, even as the years pile up. It's the realization that legends don't just fade away, they teach us how to live fully until the curtain finally falls. For Diana, the curtain is nowhere in sight. She keeps moving, keeps singing, keeps showing up for the people who have loved her since she was the teenage girl from Detroit chasing a dream. And in these recent years, perhaps more than ever, she has made it clear, her greatest act is not a song, a movie, or a gown. It's the ability to inspire, to make us believe that age is not a limit but a victory. At 81, Diana Ross is more than a performer. She is a living testament to endurance, resilience, and reinvention. While her public appearances dazzle audiences, it is her private routines, her family ties, and her mindset that sustain her luminous presence. In a world obsessed with youth, Diana has found a way to redefine aging, with discipline, joy, and an unwavering love for life. Health has always been central to her longevity. For decades, Diana has maintained a lifestyle that balances movement, nutrition, and mental wellness. She practices intermittent fasting, prioritizes plant-based meals, and remains committed to daily light exercise. But it isn't just about physical wellness, it's about mental and emotional balance. Diana meditates regularly, finding moments of stillness in a life that is anything but quiet. She often says that maintaining harmony between mind, body, and spirit is the real secret to her vitality. Equally important is her dedication to family. Diana's 5 children, Rhonda, Tracy, Chudney, Ross Ness, and Evan, are not only her greatest source of pride but also her closest companions. She often describes them as her anchors, her reason for everything. In interviews, she reflects on the joy of being a grandmother, speaking warmly of watching her grandchildren grow, sharing stories of their lives on tour, and passing down the same values of discipline, creativity, and kindness that shaped her own childhood. Even in the face of unexpected setbacks, Diana's resilience shines. In August 2025, she cancelled her appearance as a Royal Caribbean godmother due to unforeseen circumstances. While fans were initially concerned, her team reassured the public that the cancellation was precautionary, allowing her to prioritize her health and energy for her ongoing US tour. For Diana, self-care is not optional, it is strategic, a recognition that sustaining her artistry requires balance and intentionality. Her creative spirit remains undiminished. Every performance, whether at the Hollywood Bowl or an intimate symphony hall in Glasgow, is meticulously planned. She approaches each show with a combination of precision and spontaneity, crafting experiences that honor both her past and present. She still works closely with costume designers, lighting crews and musicians, insisting on excellence in every detail. Her Met Gala gown in 2025, embroidered with the names of her children and grandchildren, is emblematic of this philosophy. Art is a reflection of love, family, and legacy. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Diana Ross at 81 is her attitude toward time itself. She refuses to dwell on what has passed, focusing instead on what is yet to come. "I am not going to retire," she tells audiences, her voice steady, her eyes shining. "There is still so much to do, so much to sing, and so many people to inspire." It is a declaration of purpose, one that has fueled her career for decades and now propels her forward into uncharted territory. Beyond health and family, Diana's vision for the future is expansive. She continues to plan tours, collaborate with younger artists, and explore projects that challenge her creatively. She understands the rarity of her position, a woman who has been a cultural icon for over 60 years, and she embraces the responsibility with grace. Each performance, each public appearance, each new recording is a statement. Age is not a limitation, but a privilege. In these moments, it becomes clear why Diana Ross is more than an entertainer. She is a teacher, a guide, and an inspiration. She shows the world how to age with dignity, how to hold on to dreams while nurturing family, and how to meet every stage of life with purpose and joy. At 81, Diana Ross is not merely surviving, she is thriving, proving that the true measure of a legend is not how long you shine, but how deeply your light touches those around you. And as she steps onto the stage, microphone in hand, family close by and audiences cheering, one truth resonates unmistakably: Diana Ross is timeless. Even at 81, Diana Ross refuses to retire. Her influence stretches far beyond music and film. It permeates fashion, philanthropy, and the very notion of what it means to be a cultural icon. She has inspired generations of artists, from Beyoncé to Jennifer Hudson, and continues to mentor young performers, passing on lessons in artistry, grace, and resilience. Her legacy is not just measured in Grammy Awards, box office hits, or chart-topping singles. It's in the lives she's touched, the barriers she's broken, and the joy she's given millions worldwide. Every stage she steps on, every note she sings, reinforces a simple truth: Diana Ross is eternal. Age has not dimmed her light. If anything, it has made it shine even brighter. And for the fans, family, and fellow artists who have followed her journey for decades, one thing is clear: this is not goodbye. It's a celebration of a life fully lived, and a story that will continue to inspire long after the final encore. If Diana Ross's journey at 81 moved you, don't forget to like this video. Share your favorite Diana Ross moment in the comments below. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to follow more incredible celebrity stories and emotional videos like this one.